What is the most painful way you have seen your coworker accomplish something very simple? I occasionally come back to my desk to see a post-it note left by a team leader from elsewhere in the business. The post-it note says "See me please" and is attached to a sheet of paper. The sheet of paper is a printout of a Word document. The Word document contains a screenshot of Outlook. The screenshot of Outlook is showing an email I sent to the team leader. More precisely, it's a screenshot of a reply to my email that she has decided to screenshot, paste, print, hand deliver from a different floor, and add an explanatory post-it note to me instead of pressing send. The reply reads, "I am not sure what you mean here." The phone rings before I can email the team leader. "Hi, did you see my note? I am not sure what you meant in your email. What? Also, I would appreciate your best suggestions as to how she might add another level of stupidity to her actions. Perhaps photocopying the post-it note onto the printout would, from her perspective, ensure it wouldn't get separated and, from my perspective, ensure I couldn't lift it to read the email." A coworker uses a calculator to do weekly entries in Excel. Dear God. I organize things at my job. I had someone give me a pile of napkins, ripped corners of paper, business cards, and non-Rolodex attached Rolodex papers, etc., with various contacts on them. They ranged in information from half phone numbers to full business cards. He wanted me to rewrite all that information on colored index cards and then alphabetically organize them by last name. Some of them didn't have names, just numbers. I put them in Excel and gave it to him on a flash drive. He thought I was some kind of magician. Bought me a fruit basket. Yes to this. Fruit basket. We switched our photography database to Flickr several months back. My boss gave the job of uploading the files to a coworker who subsequently uploaded 500 files, one at a time, until I caught her and showed her that the other 2,500 images can be selected at once. She was just enjoying her time. You ruined all the fun and she had to go back to doing real work. Thanks a lot. I have a volunteer that seeks me out because I help her with every problem she has that is computer related. Last week she said her monitor was out. Again. Her monitor was fine. The computer was turned off. She says that isn't it, because she turned it on. I asked her how and she pushes on the big Dell silver badge that is located on the front of the computer, so it's on. Another time she handed me a page of music she needed formatted into a program for printing and had a few changes. She shows me what she needs changed, so I ask for the original. She says that the paper is the original. I ask for the file that she typed this so I didn't have to retype it all. She says that this is the original and that should be good enough. I try to explain that I want the digital file and what that is and why it would be better to have that than to retype it all over again. She says that if I can't do this then she will find someone else. It shouldn't be that big of a problem. So I ask how she got the original page of music and she says it was emailed to her. I ask her to forward that email to me. She has never forwarded anything before, so I show her this new feature of email. She is delighted. I am delighted. Everyone was delighted. She is very old and does not trust computers. Each time they give her trouble, the computer is broken again. She sees them as fancy typewriters. I keep waiting for her to retire, but I fear that this volunteer job is one of her only links to seeing people and would rob her of the joy of seeing people. I am her ITB. You just described my entire job at a museum except that it's many volunteers and the only other actual staff person is just as old. Everyone is delighted. My boss once gave me an Excel spreadsheet that had something like 10,000 contacts on it, told me he wanted me to scroll through and eliminate duplicates. He came out of his office 15 minutes later, saw me scripting a VB script, asked how many duplicates I had eliminated. I said, none. I'm going to get them all in one go. He told me to stop wasting company time fooling around with code and just do it his way, the scroll through and check way. So I bet him 3 paid hours I could have it done in the next 15 minutes. I would spend 3 hours off the clock organizing his contacts, or he would send me home as soon as I was done and I'd get to stay on the clock the rest of the day. 5 minutes later I emailed him the file with 7,892 unique contacts and peaced out. That's actually a pretty cool boss. Click a link that opens in a new tab. Close the window instead of the tab. Open browser and repeat. Print out an email and send it via inter-office mail. Then send an email saying I've sent you X. Write down a web address sent in an email. Switch to a browser. Type the web address in the search box. I spent a summer working on boats. I looked over and my wife was sanding a hatch on an old wooden boat using a power sander with no sanding disc. She ended up sanding the entire thing with the velcro that one is supposed to stick the sandpaper to. More of a company issue than anything else. But my old company had a really outdated website. Think from the mid-90s, and it was overdue for an overhaul. So it took 18 months to get approval for a budget of a few $1,000s to build a new website, and much infighting over why a website should cost thousands of dollars. Keep in mind, this is a mega million-dollar corporation that was posting multi-million-dollar profits year after year. So they finally get funding. I volunteer to be on the site committee because I actually have some background in web design. We contract with a local firm and in about 8 weeks they knock the assignment out of the park. I mean, we had a fantastic site ready to go at the push of a button. But that didn't work. We held a meeting where the shareholders saw the new design with the designers in the room and immediately they launched into a 2-hour fight over I think this button should be red, I think this needs more pop. Can you make our logo sparkle? One shareholder in his 70s actually asked, can you make this integrate with the Google machine? During the meeting I locked eyes with the head designer, as I was the only person under 30 in the room, and gave him my best "I'm so goddamn sorry. This is killing me too" look, and he nodded. I think he understood. It ended up taking a total of 3 years and 6 redesigns before we ended up with a site that looked okay, but it was nothing like the original design, and it took dozens of meetings just as painful as the first to finish something that we should have just paid for and gone live with immediately. TLDR. Company took over 4.5 years to fix a website and one old guy asked if they could integrate it with the Google machine. I feel your pain. We should hire an outside firm and get a really professional website made. Director of advertising. We have an intern from the local community college and she knows how to code in the HTML. I train realtors for a living. The number of times I have seen someone do a search for Google in Bing is staggering. It hurts every time. I was working one summer for a hockey tournament, calling and booking teams to play in said tournament. One of my coworkers was tasked with making the program with the full rosters of the kids, which is fairly common practice here. So she has emails with lists of all of the kids' names and numbers. Problem is the numbers are not always in numerical order. Some teams are organized alphabetically. So instead of using Word to fix this in a matter of seconds, she chose a much more interesting route. I came into her office to find her on the floor, surrounded by pieces of paper, cutting up the names and using a glue stick to make them in the proper order. I was totally speechless. Just turned and walked out of the room. She was fired about 20 minutes later when someone of power came in and saw what she was doing. Clicking the first part of an Excel spreadsheet, dragging all the way down 2+ pages, letting go right before the last row, and having to start over again. Just click Ctrl+A. Supervisor. And that is why we hired you. Thanks. Or Ctrl+End. This is like watching someone play Portal 2. In Portal 1, the concept that you can go through the portals in either direction was insanely daunting concept for everyone I watched play. Not a coworker, but my dad types letters in Excel because he knows how to use Excel and not Word. This is the routine I got to live with for almost 3 years. 1. Ask me how to do something, which pertains to their job, not mine, but the skills overlap, such as select all, copy, switch program, paste, I show with key functions. We were running Mac, so Command A, Command C, etc. 2. I explain verbally. They don't get it. 3. I come over to their computer to show them while they are at the wheel. 4. Ask coworker to come over to my desk and watch over my shoulder while I do it, explaining how. 5. Coworker questioned me at least 5 times, why, in a disbelieving tone. I am doing it that way, explain. 6. Go back to their computer and say, can you come over here and show me again, every day. 1. Write code in Eclipse. 2. Copy it to Notepad. 3. Save it. 4. Open command prompt. Use full path to Javac, which is nested way too deep, without using tab completion, to compile the file. 5. Find syntax errors. 6. Try to fix them in Eclipse. 7. Go to step 2, and he's my college lecturer. Till about tab completion. I'm not a programmer or anything, but I've been using computers and command prompts since I was 3 years old. I'm so freaking embarrassed. I had a coworker who I suggested using Google Maps to. So she goes to Bing, types in Google, finds Google and goes there. Then she types maps into the Google search. So painful. At my first job I had to speak to a procurement guy. He told me to wait while he finished typing up an email. He got to the end of the message and then started typing his email signature, which he copied from printout of another email he kept on his desk. He hunted and pecked out every letter, one by one, including the company phone and fax numbers. In his job he would need to send at least a dozen emails a day. I was remodeling someone's room a couple of years ago and was in the midst of installing the sheetrock with a fellow that had the best of intentions but a questionable degree of experience. We had just worked ourselves to a point where I needed a smaller piece of drywall to cover the gap at the end of the wall. So I asked him to cut a piece off of one of the many that was stacked outside while I finished installing the one that we had just brought in. If you have worked with sheetrock before, this is an exceedingly simple task. Measure the size needed. Use a knife to score the paper at the first measurement and bend the board until it breaks. Cut the paper on the other side. Rinse and repeat for the second measurement. It takes all of 2 minutes for a novice familiar with the process. My good friend disappeared as I continued to screw the current sheet into the wall. I finished up and thought to myself, he must have gone to take a pee, until I heard the circular saw wind up. I glanced out the window at that moment and saw a huge plume of white dust shoot into the air as the saw dug into the sheet. Thinking back, I was glad to see that he had scrounged up a dust mask in the process of retrieving the saw. For all my drywall work, I prefer to use vintage disc and dovetail saws and mortise them to the wall. I finish with a block plane. It's all about the craftsmanship. This stupid guy called IT one morning to complain that his monitor was all blurry and he needed a new one immediately before he could start work. IT came to his office and took away his old monitor and gave him a nice shiny new monitor. The guy looked at the new monitor and complained that it was also too blurry to use. Oh wait, rubs eyes. Never mind, it's fine. Disclaimer, I was that stupid man. It was Monday morning. Well, at least you won a new monitor. Open, print, fax, scan, email. I see it every day. Whenever my boss is in another office and wants something from one of our computers in the office I'm in, he always tells me to print and fax it to him. Usually I just ignore that and PDF the darn thing and email it to him. I'm sure a lot of trees will thank me. Coworker of mine didn't understand that when she turned email alerts back on, after being told to leave them off, that it would overload the mail server. For whatever reason it was sending quite a few per second to a distribution list. I am just sitting there, laughing about the event from the sidelines, working on my own stuff, just watching things unfold. Sure enough, a few hours later it brings the entire mail server down. Everyone is deleting emails, etc. I show a few people how to set up Outlook rules and just trash the mails automatically, and then I look over at what she is doing, manually deleting a page of emails at a time, 10 or so. In Outlook Web Access, there was 180,000 emails. Outlook Web Access is truly terrible. Manually entering line by line a 5,000 entry long Excel file onto SharePoint instead of uploading the dang file. I twitch. I worked in IT for a company that sold products to various oil companies. At one point I am given a task of updating an Excel sheet that needed some acronyms typed out in full as these fields were used in a bunch of different places. It turned out that a secretary was already hard at work for months updating the spreadsheet and only half done. I go in, find and replace all the acronyms in about 1 hour. It turned out she was retyping every cell with the new words. Not once did she ask if there was a faster way to do things. Doing budget reports in Microsoft Word and calculating all the totals with a desk calculator, then asking me to double check all her figures. When I started working at an office, I had this coworker who sat in the cubicle behind me. She was young but just not very computer literate. One day she asks me to fill out a service ticket because her computer is broken. I ask her what's wrong with it and she said it's broken and said to just fill the ticket in a very bitchy voice. I fill the ticket for her and one of our techs walks over with the meanest looks on his face and presses the power button on her monitor. He then walks away without saying a word to anyone. I was on the phone with a customer, but afterwards I laughed so hard I drooled on myself and she got pee. Months later the tech said she was a repeat offender of the same crime. She had an amazing butt and huge teeth, so no one gave her crap about being an artist. Walked in on my boss taking screenshots by taking photos of his computer screen. It was a film camera. For years he had been taking photographs of his screen, getting them developed, and then scanning them. This is not real. It will never cease to amaze me the amount of technological incompetence and inefficiency of people in prestigious, or even just respectable mediocre desk jobs. I don't want to sound cocky or arrogant, but I really believe I could do a lot of other people's jobs in a fraction of the effort just by having basic self-taught computer skills and familiarity. Open Word, misspell word, pull out dictionary, search for misspelling of word, fail, leave misspelling, print, give to me to spell check, edit, spelling. I noticed one of my friends was typing up some paperwork and he kept hitting the caps lock key. I asked him why he kept hitting caps lock and he gave me a dust stare and said he needed to capitalize the start of every sentence. I asked him why he was not using the shift key and he gave me a blank stare. I explained what the shift key did. He admitted that he always wondered what its purpose was. Then, it dawned on me. I asked him if he typed every paper through his 4 years of college by using the caps lock when a capital letter was necessary. He said he did, and it blew my mind thinking about how much time during his life has been spent hitting caps lock. I have seen a lot of people type like this. Every time they need to capitalize a letter, they stop, look down at the keyboard, lift up one hand, push the caps lock button, push the letter they need capitalized by poking it, then poke the caps lock key and resume typing. I asked a girl I hired to mop my dining room in my restaurant. I told her to make sure she cleans the mop and changes the water first. I have your standard mop bucket wringer combination. I look over and I see her trying to wring out the giant mop by hand in the sink. This is more heartbreaking in my opinion than all the tech related posts. There are a lot of people out there who until recently have never had a good reason to use the mysterious magic boxes that are computers. If you can't mop a floor, you are fricked, though. Worked at a US Gov office during college in about 1988. Our job required blank sheets of paper to be used as scratch paper for making notes while processing travel vouchers. We had a small amount to use per day. One day, the worst happened. We ran out of scratch paper. Fortunately, one of my colleagues wanted to help and had an idea. Unfortunately, she had the intellect of a radish. I then watched with jaw dropped as she took one of the remaining blank sheets of scratch paper and walked to the Xerox machine with a big smile on her face. Yep, she proceeded to make copies of that blank sheet of paper, with reams of new paper sitting next to the machine, to make more scratch paper for the team. I'm not sure what was worse, her look of pride for having made more scratch paper for the team or the cheers of my team thanking her. I've never been sure how to feel about the award I received that summer for outperforming the other 8 members of our team combined. 2 things. First, there is a person in our corporate office who will take a screenshot from the database, print it and fax it to me in order to ask a question. Second, our shop manager asked one day for me to set up a spreadsheet for core returns. I set it up, showed him how to quickly fill in sequential numbers in Excel, then walked away. Every month since then I've been called to his office to show him how to do it again. He's probably waiting for you to offer to just do them. Instead of minimizing the window, they'll drag it to the bottom or side to get it out of the way so they can check the desktop. Every day I watch my coworker fire up his computer. He fires up Excel. Next, he opens up Internet Explorer. At the end of the day he doesn't have anything done. Then he closes Reddit. Lies. A Redditor would never use IE. Our HR director decided she needed to forward a memo that was a hard copy. She didn't have it electronically. Rather than scanning it to herself and typing a little message to go along with it, then using her contact list, she spent several HRs using the scanner to send it one by one, though very crappy interface to every employee with an email address. Related, we had a guy at my job recently that helped out HR. His job was to scan the sheets in a ton of binders we had. He scanned every sheet individually, when he could have just loaded them up in the feed and done them 50 sheets at a time. In 1999, the company I worked for hired a 45-year-old lady as a secretary. The first task that was assigned to her involved typing some old papers into MS Word. About an hour later I saw her looking scared at the monitor and asked her what was wrong. She told me the screen is almost full with letters and there's no more space to type. What should I do? It took me a while to explain her that she could scroll the white space where she was typing. After that day, me and the rest of my co-workers took turns saving whatever she was typing into files because none of us felt we were up for the task of explaining her the concept of saving. Good luck formatting the pages. She probably hit return at the end of every line. Edit. Sounds like she wanted to do a good job. People like that are trainable, and I would have helped her. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.